The Rift Mountaintop is out. I'm sure most of you already know this, but I haven't stopped getting messages about when I'm going to release a guide to the Mountaintop, because I am, after all, the Rift Guide. So part 2 of the Rift Guide is getting released right now, along with some other tips and tricks for the Rift that I will save for the end. If you have not yet progressed through the rest of the Rift, I have the perfect guide for you that I will have linked in all sorts of places, so make sure to check that video out. I actually wanted to stream this, but I woke up late, so I was about 2.5 hours behind everybody. Sometimes it's better not to be the first one to start the update in case you end up getting stuck and you can have people pave the way for you. Kinda like for the Mountaintop. In other ways, starting an update is bad, such as for making money, because people likely have already gotten the more difficult items to obtain and are selling them at massively overinflated prices. But when I woke up, I realized that the update was out. I immediately got to work. The fastest way to get to the Mountaintop, and where everyone should start, is by warping to Portal's Plaza Eye. The stairs are directly to the left of this eye. The first little pocket in the mountain is home to Oruo the Almighty, who wants to take you through training sessions in order to collect Sun God Experience and Sun God Essence, which can be used in the Sun God Essence shop for some nice upgrades. When I first met him, I only dueled him once, and then left to come back later. I would recommend not doing this, and grinding a bit of Sun God Essence out first for some useful upgrades. Notably, an Enigma Soul, the Blessing of Time, which goes up to tier 3, which gives permanent stats inside and outside the Rift, Combo Mania Accessory, which makes Oruo duels easier, and the Super Leech Modifier, used to upgrade the distance your aspect to the Leech can teleport to, as well as lowering the mana cost for each use. I didn't find this out till later, but as you gain Sun God Experience, you are allowed to add more and more modifiers to the fights. The modifiers consist of Revival, which adds Shuriken spawns but allows the Sun Gecko to respawn once, Combo Maniac, which stuns the Gecko every hit after a combo multiplier increases, but if you lose your combo, you take 4 hearts of damage, Time Sliced, which makes it easier to build combos in the first 30 seconds of the fight, but you will lose the fight if it takes longer than 3 minutes. Buff Antics, which adds various traps such as instant damage, hazard zones, which will deal damage if you don't leave the highlighted area fast enough, and buffs such as extra speed, extra health, or extra combo multipliers, which are very important, but we will get to that a little bit later. Collective, which makes it so that for every modifier enabled, you will lose a heart at the beginning of the battle, but your combos take 0.2 seconds longer to lose. Brand New Dance, which gives the Sun Gecko a new attack and allows his attacks to deal heart damage instead of just time damage. However, when you take heart damage, you instantly regen 10 mana. And last but not least is Culmination, which stops all possible healing, but the amount of hits to build combos is lowered by 1. The more modifiers you have enabled, the more Sun God Essence and Experience you will get. You will not immediately have these modifiers unlocked, as each one takes a certain milestone of Sun God Experience to unlock. Some modifiers make the fight much harder and longer, such as Brand New Dance and, in my personal opinion, Revival. This is obviously debatable, but I think it takes a good amount of time longer for him to revive for just 5 more Sun God Essence, even though you already have combos built at that time. It's a give and take. Defeating the Sun Gecko with all modifiers enabled grants you an achievement, but other than that, it is not worth your time because it is somewhat difficult. Really, one of my only tips to do this is to make sure you get the shurikens that spawn, because they allow you to keep your combos when he goes up into the air, and to always keep your combo. If you fail to keep your combo, you are probably gonna die. Grabbing a combo multiplier buff also acts as if you have hit the Gecko, and it extends the time before losing the combo. One thing to note, which I don't know if it is a bug or not, but I'm gonna guess it's not, is that Holy Ice and the Healing Melon from Vampire Slayer work in this training area. However, the melon will not work if you have the modifier Culmination enabled. The Holy Ice should always be used when the Gecko is up in the air on the laser beam. If you're standing in blocks between the laser beam and you, the laser beam shouldn't damage you, or if you're far enough away. Don't stray too far though, because you need to keep your combo. I cannot stress that enough. The only other useful item is possibly the extremely real Shuriken, which grants plus 5% magic find on any mob hit with it. Probably useful for Slayer bosses, unless you think magic find is a scam. After moving on from Oruo, or if you decided to skip him and come back later like I did in my first run through, you will meet the Old Timer. He will explain to you that there is a new Rift collection called Timite. Timite ore is a special ore that can be aged to get different tiers of Youngite, Timite, and Obsolite, used in different crafting recipes. In order to age it, you need something called a Time Gun, which can be crafted by using a Blow Dart and 32 Youngite. The next NPC off to the side of the Old Timer is Chipper McPickaxe. somehow things in the mountaintop have gained sentience, so it has the ability to talk. He runs a business selling non-sentient pickaxes called the Anti-Sentient Pickaxe, which you can buy for roughly 25k motes. This is the starter pickaxe used to mine Youngite. The actual Timite collection can be gotten from just mining Youngite, so it doesn't actually take that long to unlock everything. The first tier of the collection unlocks the Time Gun and an upgrade to the Anti-Sentient Pickaxe called the Eon Pickaxe. The second tier unlocks the Time Pocket Bag, which is a new overworld bag where you can store consumables that take time upgrading in your inventory so that you don't have to keep them in your inventory. It's also very nice for passive money. The other thing to note about the time bag, which I did not realize at first, is that time flows twice as quickly. So instead of the normal 300 hours to upgrade the consumables, it only takes 150 hours. Tier 3 unlocks the final version of the pickaxe called the Chrono Pickaxe. This will allow you to mine Obsolite. Tier 4 unlocks the crafting recipe for Discrete, which is a new consumable, which grants more natural health regen and rift time upon consumption. Tier 5 unlocks Highlight, which is used in some crafting recipes such as for the Saylite accessory and the Enchanted Clock. The Saylite accessory slows down time while in high elevated areas such as the Mountaintop. And the clock is a new cool item which allows you to skip ahead an hour in 6 different areas every 48 hours. Areas include Cat, the Chocolate Factory, Time Pocket, and some other various areas. Tier 6 unlocks the crafting recipe for the Saylite accessory. In order to age the Youngite on the walls, all you have to do is hold right click on your time gun while aiming at a piece of Youngite. And after a couple seconds, it will turn into Timite. If you want Obsolite, hold right click on your time gun for another couple seconds while aiming at the piece of Timite and it will turn it into Obsolite. For reference, you can grind about 16 highlight per hour, which with highlight being 2.3 mil per on the bazaar right now, that's roughly 37 mil per hour. That's pretty good, especially for a new player. Although, this should drop slightly as more people play the update. By now you've probably noticed puffs, which are the cruxes of the Mountaintop. It says in the description of the puff crux that they are pure CO2, or carbon dioxide. So I believe that they are spawned just from running around, otherwise they do not spawn naturally. These puffs are also chain mobs. If you kill one, it should turn around and start insta-killing all puffs in sight as a chain. I'm not exactly sure how this chaining works, because sometimes it does not kill all the puffs in sight, and sometimes it does. For some reason, these mobs do not guarantee a crux drop, even with a max Chronomicron accessory. From my experience, the more puffs you have in a chain, the higher chance you have of dropping puff cruxes. I've also heard that Crux Fortune doesn't apply to chain puffs, but that could just be hearsay. I don't know if that's 100% true. The best way to grind them is to actually head further up the mountain until you run into this vending machine looking thing, which is awesome, might I say. Good job, admins. It actually looks super awesome. Click on this and buy a gravity pot. The gravity pot will then be splashed on you and will heavily increase puff spawns, although I don't exactly know by how much. Seems like it's twice as fast. There is a spot where you can run back and forth and group a ton of puff spawns near the exit of the cave. Otherwise, another effective way of killing puffs you cannot reach is by using your blow dart. If you used your only one on a time gun, you're gonna have to go back and farm more Berbers for another one like I did. The next NPC you will meet is Ubik von Neumann, or Ubik for short. Ubik will introduce you to a game of Choose the Box. The reward, an IQ point, which is a new accessory that increases your rift time by 1%. The game is very simple. You will choose whichever box you like, Ubik will open a box that doesn't have the IQ point, and you will get the choice of either keeping your box or switching your box. When I realized what this game was, I got so excited, because I originally learned it from the movie 21. While I cannot play the movie clip if I want to monetize this video, I can read the quote, which does a good job explaining it. And I would also recommend going and watching that movie. That movie is freaking awesome. The quote goes like this. Well, when I was originally asked to choose a door, I had a 33.3% chance of choosing right. But after he opens one of the doors and then re-offers me the choice, it's now 66.7% if I choose to switch. So yeah, I'll take door number 2. And thank you for the extra 33.3%. The moral of the story is just always switch, because it gives you better odds. If you win the IQ point, you will be rewarded with an Enigma Soul. Every time you enter the Rift, you can replay this game. I would recommend replaying as many times as it takes to get 18 IQ points, because you can upgrade using 9 IQ points to get the accessory 2 IQ points, which gives a 2% bonus Rift time, as well as a bonus 2% mana in the overworld. Getting 18 allows you to have a talisman in the Rift and in the overworld. Unfortunately, it doesn't stack up any higher than 2. The next NPC you will pass as you progress through the cave is Madame Eleanor. She is searching for the person in the reflection, which will be you. You can ignore her for now because completing her quest is not required yet, and I want to keep all of her parts together in one place for you guys. Back towards the exit of the cave, there is a parkour section that you cannot access yet, because it is used later in the story. Ignore it for now and speak to another version of Ubik. This version of Ubik has to do with averages. He will ask you to input a number which you are trying to guess. The goal is to try to get as close to half the average as possible, or the average divided by 2. For the first one, I just took 50, which I thought the average was going to be, divided it by 2, and went with a little less. Ultimately, I landed on the number 23. The 10% closest people to the average divided by 2 will be rewarded with a free will. I ended up winning because the average ended up being 50.7. I don't think a lot of people understood how this game was going to work. I believe as more people learn, the averages will be going down and down, which means your guesses should keep going down and down. If you win the game, you are rewarded with an achievement and an Enigma Soul. A new round of guessing commences every Skyblock year. A free will is actually a pretty great item which sells for a pretty good amount of coins. Right now, 50 mil, which is super good for just guessing numbers. It gambles your minion to either gain 10% minion speed or leave you forever. That's right, your minions can now get free will. You automatically have a 50% chance of success and an extra 4% chance of success for every minion level. This means for a tier 12 minion, there's a 98% chance of success. Fortunately, if your minion leaves you, you get another secret item called a postcard. When placed near your island, it increases all minion speed by 5%. It is a super great item. I've pretty much only heard people use them on Inferno minions because those minions retain the most value of the free will. If you're going to do this, use it on a tier 1 please, and not a tier 11. If you fail, you should still get a postcard, which is selling for about 100 mil right now. Another reason for why I think the average numbers will keep going down is because the admins also think so. They added another aspect to the game. If you guess a number that is at least 4 times higher than the average, you will get 2 free wills instead. Obviously, the number cannot be 200 because you can only guess between 1 and 100. So one of 2 things will happen. Either the majority of people will bring the average down, allowing for a small group of people to guess 100 and win 2 free wills, or the majority of people will stay greedy and keep the averages, well, for lack of a better term, at the average of 50, because they're guessing super high and raising the average. If I had to guess, it's probably going to be the latter, which is fine with me because I'll take my 1 free will every Skyblock year. Who knows, maybe the community will prove me wrong. The only other thing to know about this game is that you cannot guess the same number twice. I don't know if that's for the rest of time or if it's just twice in a row. The next thing you will run into is the Moving Snow Island Challenge, which, might I add, is quite challenging. If you don't care about Enigma Souls or want to come back and get them later, skip this for now. This is a much harder challenge than I thought. I actually almost got this done on my first attempt, but ended up messing up my TPs. This is the reason why I recommended upgrading your aspect to the leech before continuing, because I didn't, and it definitely made this more difficult. The platforms move at different speeds the higher up you go, making it more difficult to stay on them. No, you cannot shift and let them carry you. You have to actively keep up with them. The good news is that when you are on an island, it will show particles of the circular path it follows. There are some stationary islands where you can regen your mana from using your aspect of the leech. The best way I've found at completing this is by waiting till the island you are on and the island you are going to are either going the exact same direction or waiting until the island you are going to is coming towards you. I've found it is way easier to pick a spot where the island is going to be and where you're going to TP to and committing to it rather than TPing once and trying to turn mid-air with the aspect of the leech. Upgrading the aspect of leech also allows you to TP 5 blocks 4 times, versus me using the non-upgraded version only allowing me to TP 4 blocks 3 times, which is a very large difference. The only other tip is when you are trying to stay on the island while it's moving, going into third person is helpful. But when actually TPing, I've found that staying in first person is way more helpful. Successfully doing this grants you another Enigma Soul. Continuing up the mountain, you will see 2 more versions of Eleanor, who we will be ignoring for now. You will come to a crossroads where you can either continue climbing the mountain on the left or you can go through the cave on the right. I recommend going through the cave first. Once you are through the cave, you will meet an NPC called Ikrus, which is a play on the name Ikarus. For those of you that know Greek mythology, you should expect what is about to happen here. Ikrus claims that he can see the sun, even though if you look up, the sky is pitch black. He thinks he can see a way out of here, and if he does enough squats, he'll be able to jump high enough to reach it. I don't think the amount of squats you tell him to do matters, but I went with the numbers 9, 24, and 40. After the last jump, he will die. You will get burning pants, these have no use that I know of, and you are rewarded with an Enigma Soul. From here, you should head down to the right and find the last version of Ubik. And this time, he has a game called Split and Steal for you to play. This game has been adapted in many ways, but it originates from The Prisoner's Dilemma. If you're curious how that works, feel free to look it up for yourself. He tells you to play Split or Steal against 3 NPCs. These NPCs all have different playstyles, and if you hover over their side in the menu, it will show what their playstyles are. One of them will always steal, one of them will always split, and one of them will alternate between splitting and stealing, basically following whatever you do. Having more moats and quote-unquote winning doesn't really matter. After playing these 3 NPCs, you now have to play Ubik. In order to complete the quest, you must play Ubik with each of the 3 playstyles from the NPCs. Once by stealing every time, once by splitting every time, and once by alternating every time, otherwise known as following everything Ubik does. Just like with the other Ubik, you can only play him once per rift entry. This hasn't worked for some people, but doing this worked for me, and I was rewarded with an Enigma Soul and Ubik's Cube, which allows you to play Split or Steal with an NPC or a player in the rift. Ubik's Cube basically prints free moats, and one point on release was the fastest way to farm moats to ever exist, until admins realized this and put a 2-hour cooldown on using it. So every 2 hours you can challenge someone in the rift, and if you both always split, you'll get a bonus 3k moats for every successful split round. Not bad for not really having to do anything if you ask me. I have not tried this with any NPCs yet, but if it does work on the original NPCs you played, you can just play the NPC that always splits and steal from him every time to farm even more moats. The NPC on the left always steals, the middle follows what you do, and the right always splits. If you continue down the stairs on the backside of the mountain, you will run into another anvil being held up by balloons. Popping them all and dropping the anvil on the chest rewards you with an Enigma Soul. Head back up the mountain to the crossroads we were at before, and this time go left and continue climbing the mountain. You will run into another one of Portal's eyes, called the 7th Sin. I still recommend using the Plaza Eye because you should be getting your IQ points done, but after that is done, this eye is super nice to use. You will also run into the Flower Pot Parkour. The Flower Pot Parkour is on the same difficulty level as the Moving Snow Island Parkour, and it is just for an Enigma Soul. So again, if you don't want to do this right now, you can skip it. For those of you like me who like to get things done when you come across it, here we go. This is like any other Flower Parkour from the Rift, except harder, especially when you have other people in your way. Follow the flower pots and jump onto the floating islands. The difficult part of this flower pot parkour is the timer on the flower pot is very apparent, because you have to actively wait for the islands to work their way around. If you fail once, odds are the flower pots are going to disappear and you will have to re-grab them all over again, making this pretty tedious. The other difficult part is when you have to fall off the second moving platform onto a flower pot far below. Some people are able to TP onto it. I was not one of those people. I struggled very much with actually TPing onto the pot. So I found the chords you need to be at to directly fall onto the pot. X being 40, Y being 116. Stay on this block and let the island pass and you should fall directly onto the flower pot. There is another jump a few jumps later which is even further down. And this one you definitely have to use your aspect of the leech for. You can't reach it normally, even with momentum. I know, I tried. Luckily, I hit this jump first try, and was able to make it to the end for an Enigma Soul. Use the warp pad to TP back to the beginning. Continue your way up the mountain. You will now run into Detective Amog, and solve another reverse murder case. Head back to the 7th Sin Eye and teleport to the Plaza Eye, then head over to Romero's house. It's the same house you solved the first case in case you have forgotten. You will follow the same steps as the first case. Going to the florist, back towards the plaza, then to the master tactician Fink. This is near the Coliseum if you remember. Then back to Taylor's basement, where Romero and Joliet will declare their love for each other. After talking to Romero, you will go back with him to his house and build the defenses by right-clicking on them and walking over to where it says build. After doing this, Amog will say to hide and wait for the murderer. The place to hide is under the stairs. After waiting for a bit, you will hear your past self call for Wizardman's help to break the barrier, and you will have to run out of your hiding spot and kill your past self before you can murder Romero. After this short cutscene, Joliet will reward you with an accessory called the Ring of Eternal Love, which grants plus 80 rift seconds. Head back up the mountaintop to where you met Amog and turn to the right. There is a leap of faith you must make. Jumping will land you on barrier blocks and you can walk all the way to the island, except for the last block, which is not there, so you'll have to jump the gap. Grab the Enigma Soul, check the sign, and head back to the beginning of the mountaintop. It is time for Eleanor's Quest. Eleanor's Quest is a little annoying due to having to warp in and out of the rift over and over again. So if you don't have a prism, this is kind of gonna suck. Basically, all you have to do is talk to each version of Eleanor, claim that you are the person in the reflection in chat, and then go to that area in the overworld and do whatever Eleanor says. The first version of Eleanor requires you to go to the deep caverns. Wearing Devon's armor and a legendary silverfish equipped, head to the emerald mines near the lift operator and crouch twice. Other mining armors work, but the only other one that I know for sure works is heat armor. I am also not sure if the pet has to be legendary rarity, but I would recommend it just to be safe. When you successfully complete the task, you will hear an audio cue and you will see the text "You sense a watchful presence" in chat. Remember, for this to work properly, you have to first click on the green text in the rift when talking to Eleanor that confirms your identity. She will reward you with a pair of boots. The next version of Eleanor requires you to go to the treasure hoarder area in the Dwarven Mines. If you don't know where this is, the coords to the block to stand on is -148, 197, -60. You need to be wearing sponge or shark scale armor, have a legendary flying fish equipped, use any water rod, and get a splash pot of your choosing. Look straight up, throw the pot, then cast your rod before the pot lands. If done correctly, you should hear the same audio cue and see the same text in chat. Eleanor will then reward you with a chestplate. The next version of Eleanor requires you to go to the carrot farm by the barn, under the bridge. The coords are 127, 86, -287. You must be wearing at least crappie armor or better, with any kind of mathematical farming hoe, with a legendary elephant equipped. When standing in this area, type "Eleanor is the best" in chat. If done correctly, you should hear the same audio cue and see the same text. Eleanor will then reward you with a helmet. The fourth version of Eleanor, which is not the one in the cave, but the one across the bridge where we saw Detective Amog, requires you to go to the last checkpoint for the race in the park, in the Junglewood area. Have a tree capitator in your hand and a legendary ocelot equipped. You must also be wearing any set of gold armor. I use Devon's armor, but any other gold armor can also be used. If done correctly, you should hear the same audio cue and see the same text in chat. Eleanor will reward you with a pair of leggings. For the last version of Eleanor, which is found in the cave near the top of the mountain, requires you to go to a certain spot in the spider's den, which is to the right of the first crossroads you see when entering the underground of the spider's den. The coords are -304, 68, -308. You must be wearing strong dragon armor. I'm not sure if any version of dragon armor works or not, but I use strong dragon. You must also have a raider's axe out and a legendary wolf pet equipped. She wants you to disappear, which means just typing /hub when on that block. If done correctly, you should hear the same audio cue and see the same text in chat. Eleanor will reward you with the opportunity to buy Shen's Ringalia, which costs 25k motes, a stack of puff crux, 20 youngite, 20 Timite, and 20 Obsolite. After purchasing this accessory, head to the top of the mountaintop. You will see an Argo-Fey door holder who asks to see your supreme Timecharm before letting you through. The door shuts quickly, so make sure you are right next to it when it opens. In each of the areas you go through, there will be mini tasks to do that are reminiscent of the larger challenges you have previously faced. In the first room, you must use your warding trinket to trace the particles of the heart. The next room is some invisible mirrorverse parkour. Just look to the left to see where to jump. The next area doesn't have a task, just show the Timecharm and go on through. This room has some snakes from the living cave, kill one by stunning and mining it yourself, and proceed on. This room has a mini Bacti area. Shoot the globules into the slime in the middle until it disappears. Show your Timecharm and move on. The next room is a mini Stilgore Chateau. You have to climb up and clear the effigies to pass through. The first ladder is located in a tree to your right when you enter, and the second ladder is located in the far left corner from where you enter inside the mini castle. The next room has a couple things. The first thing you should do is talk to Obo. Make sure you have Shen's Ringalia from Eleanor's Quest because you'll need it. When you enter the room, you will see this big mech thing. Walk up to it and click the wooden button on the right with an exclamation point above it and summon Shen Chaos. Turn on all the lamps and speak with him. After speaking with him, turn on all the lamps and summon Shen Albedo. Repeat this process for every Shen on the list. The third Shen will reward you with the final Timecharm, the Celestial Timecharm. But if you go all the way to the last Shen on the list, you will obtain an item called the Golden Belt. This belt is actually worse than the Vermin Belt as of right now, so if you don't feel like doing the puzzle, feel free to skip it. As you progress through Shens, turning on all redstone lamps will become more and more difficult. Different buttons control different lamps, making it difficult to figure out the patterns. I'm sure at some point a solver will be made in one of the mods, but for now, just spam it. That's what I did to get the golden belt, and it took me less than 5 minutes. Exit the room and make your way over to Eleanor. Before speaking with her, climb the mountain to your right to find some hay, which you can break with the horse Zuka. Doing so will reward you with an Enigma Soul. Go back to Eleanor and speak with her. You don't actually have to have the Celestial Timecharm placed to be able to pass through, and she should let you through to see the final boss, the Wizardman. In order to become the Wizardman, which apparently is your goal, you must first defeat him in 3 different trials 4 times each. The different trials are Combat, Parkour, and Connect 4, but this game is called Quad Link to avoid copyright infringement. Each of these trials are relatively difficult, but shouldn't take too long, unless you suck at Connect 4. For those of you that are trying to do this as fast as possible and not improve, I will have a Connect 4 solver linked in the description below. Skytill's also recently updated, and that update added a Quad Link solver. But just so you know, if you have to use a solver, you are lame. Defeating him in a trial rewards you with a piece used in upgrading a piece of your armor, and you need 4 of each to upgrade a piece of armor, hence defeating him 4 times in each game. The next game I chose was Parkour. In order to start the parkour, you can ignore the dialogue and walk right up and right click the ready hologram. Stepping on the pressure plate actually does nothing but annoy it, because it is sentient, because we're on the mountaintop, and it will talk back. The fastest path will always be the single blocks with torches on them, so follow those to beat him. He starts ahead of you, making it difficult, especially when your player models merge a bit, making it hard to see where you are jumping. Following the torches is also helpful, because sometimes some of the platforms fall off, and if you are on them, you will fail. If you fail a race and try again, the next time there will be these little rewind thingy heads that activate when you jump around them, rewinding the Wizardman, making it very easy to beat him. It should only take you 8 races maximum to get all 4 boot pieces. The last trial is Combat, but not like Sun Gecko Combat. You get a Staff of the Rising Moon, which is your only way to hurt the Wizardman. He has 12 health, but you should have more due to your armor from Vampire. Each hit does 1 health of damage. I never really figured out a strategy for this other than just spamming right click as fast as I can to send as many orbs at him as possible, while also staying between the pillars to avoid damage from him. Flying vertical doesn't really matter, and I don't think it makes you harder to hit. I'm also relatively positive his shots are heat-seeking unless they hit one of the pillars, but someone should definitely confirm that for me. It's not difficult to win. In fact, I didn't die once, but at one point I was at 1 heart, so I came close. After defeating him, he gives you his face, so that you can truly be the Wizardman you always wanted to be. He will then show you a cutscene of your time in the Rift, making you feel all nostalgic inside. If you completed the Detective Amog questline first, you will see Amog. After speaking with him, he wants to solve his own reverse murder. This prompts you into killing him, and he will drop his wallet, which is Rift transferable and can be sold for 500k coins. That's it. Nothing else is special about it, however it does have an addition if placed in the museum. Climbing the ladder will put you face to face with the breach, which you will need 35 minutes of Rift time left to seal. If you don't have this, just leave the Rift and come right back. Luckily, after meeting the Wizardman, you don't have to go through all the mini trials anymore. You can just directly warp to the Wizard Room. Walk to the right of his throne and go behind him, and you'll be able to make it back outside and up to the breach. Sealing the breach will put you back into the normal Skyblock hub with the Wizard, and you will be rewarded with a book memento titled There and Back Again, signifying that you have officially conquered the Rift. You might think this guide is over, but wait, there's more. I discovered some useful information for those of you that made it this far into the guide. If you did make it this far and you liked this video or thought it was helpful, I would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is 100,000 subscribers, and only 20% of my viewers are subscribed. It's free, and you can always change your mind later. 2 things I wanted to mention before ending this video. Okay, so originally I had this section of the video to talk about how I thought I found this new amazing moat method. It was like doing Wizardman parkour and get like 210k moats an hour, and I was like, man, that's really good. Like, that might be one of the best ways to get moats. And then I realized that you could just mine highlight and get 500k moats per hour, which is that's pretty good, and that's way better than my method. Conversely, prisms now go for like 18 mil moats because of all the inflation of farming highlights and Ubik's cube. So have fun with farming prisms, guys. The other thing that was added to the Rift this update, which is absolutely insane, is an upgrade to the stake, making it the super sharp and stabby stake. Now this upgrade might not seem like much, because all it does is double the amount of damage on your next hit when you kill a vamp with your stake. But the other ability is really where this weapon becomes OP. it gives so much combat XP. The amount of spawns to spawn a tier 5 goes from 28 total kills to just 12. This makes solo farming vamps so much better, but also makes loot sharing vamps better as well. More bosses with less spawn time equals more profit per hour. And with people needing less spawns, there should be less vamps stolen when trying to spawn your boss. One thing to note is that since you are not killing as many spawns, you will not be able to recoup the price of spawning just from getting those spawn kills. However, I don't believe this matters. More bosses equals more loot share equals more drops equals more motes. And you're also getting more vamp experience faster. I would like to test this, however, and so maybe that will end up being my next video. Let me know if you guys want another vampire video in the comments. The last thing I would like to add before signing off is I'm sorry this video took so long to make. I actually got sick while I was making it, and then it was Christmas, and then I was home for the holidays, and then I came back. But boys, 2025 is going to be our year. Uploads, streams, shorts, all the good stuff. But there you have it, the fully comprehensive guide to the Mountaintop, to go along with the Rift Guide. If I missed anything or if you have any questions, make sure to comment them down below. Real quick, I just want to make sure that I thank each and every one of my subscribers. A little after Mountaintop came out, I was able to obtain the absolutely prestigious YouTube rank on Hypixel, something that I've been working towards for a little over 2.5 years. It feels absolutely surreal, and I cannot thank you guys enough for your support. But with that, if you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe. I stream at twitch.tv/theogyadi, so make sure to check me out on there. Streams will be coming back, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace!